Hey everyone, welcome to this video, and today I'm going to be showing you how to pull those big bold tattoo lines. We're going to be taking an in-depth look at the most common methods used to pull these lines. We're going to be weighing up the pros and cons of each of these methods, and then towards the end of this video I'm going to be sharing with you my personal preferences, what I like to use to pull these lines. Then from there we're going to be jumping into a video of a tattoo which I did, actually showing you me using these methods. Now, as always guys, to get the most out of this video, I can't strongly recommend enough not to skip any part of this video. Watch it in its entirety to get the most out of it. If you do like this video guys, it means a lot to me if you just hit that thumbs up button at the end of this video. Drop your comment in the box below. I'll try and respond to as many comments as I can. With all that said guys, let's not waste any more time and get straight into it. So there's a misconception that the way you create big bold lines is to use a ridiculously large round liner. I've actually seen comments from tattooists before today saying that they've used something daft like a 50 round liner on a design, which is obviously not true. There are, however, a number of ways to achieve a big bold line, and there's definitely not just one way to do it. So let's look at the most common ways. The small round liner method. Now this method is actually really simple and involves lining down each edge of the stencil with a relatively small liner, let's say like a 7 round liner. Then the tattooist uses the same needle to do small circles and pack solid black in the middle of the two lines. So now let's discuss the pros and cons of this method. Well, the pros are small needle configurations are generally easier to put ink into the skin as opposed to larger groupings. So tattooists that are super comfortable using smaller configurations find it much easier to get that ink saturation using a smaller liner. Now another pro of doing it this way is simply the fact that you only have to use one needle. The cons to using this method is that it can be very time consuming. Although it's easier to put the ink in with a smaller needle configuration, it also means that the lines that you're going to pull are going to be quite thin. So depending on how thick the line needs to be, adding to the time you're going to be spending packing in the middle with the solid black, it can all add up to quite a lot of extra time, and extra time also means extra discomfort for your client. Now the next method is again by using a small round liner, and again lining down the edges of the stencil like the previous example, but this time using a large round shader or even a small mag to colour pack the centre of the line. Now the pros to using this method, again like the first example, is the fact that it's relatively easy to put the ink in the skin using the small needle configuration. Another pro to this method is it takes much less time than the previous method to pack the black into the middle, because you're packing it with a larger shader or a mag, which speeds things up. Now the con to this method is that it's quite easy to go beyond your initial line that you pulled when using a large shader or a mag if you're not too careful. Now if this happens, then you have to start backtracking and dropping back down to your liner and trying to fix where you've gone wrong, and this can ultimately lead to a wonky looking line. Another con to this method is simply the fact that you have to use two needle configurations, so if you're not using a cartridge system where you can easily switch between the cartridges, then you're actually going to have a second machine for the colour packing, which isn't a massive drawback, but it's worth mentioning. Now this next method is to actually line the tattoo using a round shader. Now round shaders are basically liners but with the needles that are more spaced out. Now the pros to this are, because the needles of the shader are more spaced out, then the theory is that the line will be fatter when tattooing with one. Now the other pro is the fact that you only have to use one needle configuration and you don't have to switch to another needle configuration or another machine to pack the colour in. It can all be done with the shader. Now a definite con to this, in my opinion, is the fact that lining with a shader tends to not give a definite edge on a line. I've actually tried numerous times in the past to line with a shader, and for me the edges of the line just lack definition. Now I'm certainly not saying you can't line with one of these, and I've seen people use them and get decent results, but for me personally I never use shaders to pull lines with. The fourth and final method is using quite a large round liner and kind of stacking your lines. So this method will see you using something like an 18 round liner and pulling the line down one edge of the stencil, then slightly moving your liner across and pulling a second line or even a third line alongside the one you've just pulled, so you're almost stacking a series of lines next to each other. Now the pro to this method is the fact that it's the quickest out of the methods we've just looked at. Another pro is the fact that you only require one needle without the need for changing to a shader or mag, and because this method is quick, it causes considerable less discomfort to your client. Now the downside to this method is that it can take a considerable amount of practice to pull a nice strong line with a big needle configuration such as an 18 round liner. Now time and time again I see people trying to pull lines with big liners, and when they wipe the skin the result is just patchy, blooded skin with no ink in it. Larger needle configurations tend to need a little more pressure on the skin, but not too much pressure, as it can go from not putting any ink at all to blowing out in a really short space of time. When people do have a hard time using these big liners, they tend to decide to drop down to smaller ones, which is where the comfort zone is, and then they end up avoiding using these big round liners altogether. So out of all these methods I've covered, my personal preference for pulling big bold lines is the large liner stacking method. It's just my personal opinion, but I've tried and tested the other methods, and I feel using a small liner and packing colour in the middle just gives the line an unpolished, rough finish. Now some tattooists do get good results with this method, so I'm not saying it's wrong, but it just doesn't suit my way of tattooing. By using the stacking method with a large needle configuration, for me it gives the line a nice smooth polished finish. It also saves a load of time, which allows you to put a nice strong thick lines into the skin and move to the next part of your tattoo relatively quickly. So in this next section coming up, I'm going to show you a snippet of a traditional tattoo that I did using this stacked method. So here I'm actually using an Envy 18 round liner bug pin cartridge. As you can see in the example, I pull my first line, it's one pass, it's nice and strong. Then I go slightly above the first line, stacking my second one against it, and I achieve a really nice thick bold line. The ink is nice and solid. The black is fully saturated in the skin, and it's got a really smooth edge, and I'm able to move straight to the next part of the tattoo, saving me loads of time and effort trying to colour pack in the centre of it. If anyone does want to see this tattoo performed from start to finish with me implementing this technique, you can watch the 2-minute time-lapse video of it by clicking on the card above, and you'll be able to watch it at the end of this video. As always guys, to pull these lines, the planets need to be aligned and everything needs to work in sync with each other. Your machine needs to be running at the right speed, your stretch needs to be right, you need to be using quality ink, needles, and your hand speed needs to match your machine speed. I do cover all these subjects in my other videos, so feel free to browse my channel and check all those videos out. So to summarise guys, all of these methods will work, but for me personally, a big liner stacking the lines gives the best overall polish results for a nice big fat dark line. Thank you so much for watching this video guys. If you did like it, it means so much to me. If you just take the time to hit that like button, give me a thumbs up, drop your comments in the box below. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button, click the notification bell to stay up to date with all my latest videos. With all that said guys, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.